And we are now live here at Barcelona Metropolitan. We're going to be talking to you, Ann Reilly, about adaptability. And as you know, Ann, we're always trying to add value to the international community by focusing on really cool people that are doing really interesting stuff. And your background and your work, I've personally known you for a long time, and I'm always impressed. You always do really cool stuff and always have very strong, valuable contributions at whatever event you're hosting or adding to. So I'm really psyched to have you here with us. And we're going to talk about adaptability at work. So before we go further, can you talk about, say, a 10, 15-second introduction as to who you are?
Sure. And thanks for having me here, Victor. It's so nice to start the day like this and with that greeting. So my husband and I came to Barcelona about 15 years ago, and I came to run the Yahoo Europe mid-market team. And that was following a 5-year stint at Yahoo in New York. And previous to that, we were in California. I was working at Intuit. And before that, we spent 8 years in Asia, where I worked for media companies and a big advertising agency called Leo Burnett.
Yes, I know them all. So. Very well-known companies. Excellent. So you came here with a very powerful credentialed CV. So what are you focusing on now?
So my path it has been an international career, as I mentioned, and throughout my career, I've been super interested in adaptability. I didn't really know that was it, but as I learned more, as I worked more, I really became interested in adaptability and leadership. So now I'm focused on helping leaders and teams to navigate change by improving their adaptability at work.
Okay. So you have this background in media, you're doing adaptability, but let me take a step back because I forgot to ask a question that I wanted to ask. What brought you to Barcelona?
Well, what brought me to Barcelona was Yahoo. And I was working at Yahoo New York, and there was this opportunity to continue my international career and to know, to know another side of the business, because I was doing field sales for very large accounts in leading a team at Yahoo New York. And the business here was a much larger team of about 50 people. And it was the mid-market, so more of a phone-based sales approach, covering Europe. And so I raised my hand, and Yahoo brought me over here to be the commercial director. So it was, I wanted to learn a new side of the business, which I think is part of what we'll talk about is adaptability, and really, expand my leadership skills as well. Okay.
So you have experience in New York. You have experience in Asia. And had you been to Barcelona before you came here?
We had been here, once or twice just for long weekends. But it's more of a transit stop and seeing a couple friends. But, we saw that it was a great city and had some amazing potential as a place to live and work and meet great people.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's lots of wonderful people here. Yeah. So you're focusing on adaptability now. And why is it that I'm hearing a lot more about it recently? Because I didn't know that I'd heard of it, but I hadn't really heard so much. And now I don't know if I'm just exposed to a certain group of people that are really into it, or if it really is just a lot stronger buzz now.
I think you are hearing it more and more lately. And, for the audience, as you'll be seeing articles, you'll hear your boss, your manager say, hey, you need to adapt to this. And one of the things I'm focused on is like, well, what does that actually mean that you have to adapt? And how do you know if you're doing it well? And how do you know if you're doing it fast enough? But I also think you're hearing more of it because the world is changing so fast now. And we're predicted to see more change in the next 10 years than we have in the last 100 years. And to put that in another perspective, today is the fastest it's ever been. And it's also the slowest it will ever be.
Wow. That's pretty deep. But, I've been thinking about this for quite a while as a father.
Yeah.
watching what my children are studying and the challenges of an educational system that has to provide just, traditional curriculums in math and sciences and languages and arts, humanities and everything. And with all the changes in technology and all the changes in not just how we learn, but what we learn, and debates of methodology being put up. And of course, living in Barcelona, the question of how much English should be part of the curriculum versus Spanish or Catalan. And, of course, they always want to study one other language. And the difficulties that it must be to be a student these days must be something in a different universe to what I grew up in. So yeah, when you were talking about adaptability, there's a phrase that comes to mind. If you can't measure something, you can't really help change it or change it effectively. So how does one measure adaptability in the workplace?
Sure. So that's what's also new about adaptability, is that, there's a lot of studies on it. There's a lot of different factors around it. And it is this, that's what I refer back to what I said, like, how do you know if you're adapting well or fast enough? So there is the adaptability quotient now. So we've had IQ, we've had EQ for your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence, and now we have AQ, which is your adaptability quotient. So this is an assessment, a self-assessment, where individuals and teams can take it, and it measures on 3 different areas. So your abilities, like your grit, your mental flexibility, your resilience, your mindset, and your ability to unlearn. Also your character. Are you more of an introvert or an extrovert? Because both of those personality styles can adapt to change, but they do it in very different ways. And that's useful for you to know as a person about how you process change, but also for your team and your manager to know, how do you want to receive information and how do you want to participate in the conversation around change at work. And then the third pillar of measurement, besides ability and character, is your environment. So you assess your environment and whether it's an environment that supports change or whether it hinders change. And also, what's your work stress level at work as you're going through change, which is super important because the workloads, the speed of change, the responsibilities outside of work, there's causing a lot of mental health issues, which are serious personal issues and also economic issues, of people missing work and just not being able to perform at the level that they would like to perform at. So this is a measurement that will help you to understand, what you need to work on, all tied to your goals, but also it's to increase your productivity and performance and also your well-being.
Cool. Now you mentioned something that kind of caught my attention. I want to make sure I got the character, environment, but the first one was
ability. So like skills.
And when it was in the ability part that you were discussing, did I hear you correctly? How you unlearn?
Exactly. Yes.
What does that mean?
So that means, are you using, are you using old processes that are outdated and that things that you should let go of and stop using, stop doing, stop thinking in ways in order to free your mind and learn new things? So it's unlearning to learn new things. So, AI is, a great tool that we have out there that's really replacing a lot of tools we've used in the past. I mean, I was just talking to somebody, the other day about, using, I don't know if you use pivot tables in Excel, but, I always have to remind myself of, how do I do a pivot table, and, go in and construct it. Now I can do it with a prompt. And, wow. So how do I unlearn that skill while learning how to use AI, to achieve the same goals faster?
Excellent. Yeah, I think it resonates with me because I'm an old Microsoft project guy. With all the interdependencies, the finish, the finish, start, the start, finish, all these
right.
little details that were really important when I was doing software development. And I'm so stuck in my way of doing that sometimes I feel that the tools that are available that are powerful, I haven't mentally changed my way. I understand the concepts, but I haven't changed my thinking so that I can effectively use tools that I know are productive. I'm still old school. So I think this is fascinating. Can you give some examples of how you apply adaptability dimensions and how you navigate change within the workforce, and what scale does it make sense? Because there's a lot of small companies. Is it useful in small companies, or does it need to be a mid-size or large company?
Sure. So let's just, look at unlearn a bit more. If you've been doing product launches or, at work, and you have, the same process you're doing time and time again, but you're having more and more to do because of, the world speeding up. And maybe you need to stop and look at the process that you're doing and unlearn that process and really brainstorm on what are new ways that we can incorporate new technology. What are ways that we can, use it to free up time? How can we do this? How can we do these launches in a new way that will make us more productive, more effective, and get our message out or get the product into the right hands? So that's just one way of questioning things from the beginning and looking at the process to say, do we need to, stop doing this and do something new? So it's a good exercise, whatever size team you're in, or as an individual, hey, this is, question yourself of this is how I always do it. Is it the best way? And it's kind of when you walk to work in the morning, Victor, sometimes you always go the same path because you're just on, automatic direction. But maybe you take a new way to work, you go down a different street and you discover something new. And it's also energizing when you see something new that might, pique your interest, and, you might go down that path and find, some great new things to bring into, your life or your work. So that's one way. And then I would say that, also, you asked about the size of company. It's really applies, to individuals, to small teams, and to large teams. So, if we look at somebody's goals and objectives, an individual might have a goal to get a job promotion within the next year. So, one of the things, adaptability has actually been cited as the top skill of the moment by LinkedIn, who's, our platform here, but obviously knows the working world very well. So people, employers, leaders are looking for people who are highly adaptable, who can navigate uncertainty, who can really process new information and excel in changing circumstances. So how do you improve your adaptability in order to prove that you're ready for that next level of job responsibility? So in that case, for an individual, we would probably focus on their mental flexibility, their ability to unlearn, and also their hope, which is one of the dimensions of the character pillar. So do you have agency? And can you think of multiple pathways in order to solve your challenges, solve your problems? So it can be quite powerful at the individual level, but also we, of course, work in teams at work. And, how can you really elevate and empower the entire team? And I think that that's so important in today's working world because of the speed, the velocity of change is so high, and it's going to increase, that you can't do it on your own. You need to have the whole team, working together working in harmony, and also, productive, high performing, and having, high well-being as well.
Excellent. So next question that I have for you is advice. For people who are trying to cope with change all the time and as fast as it's coming. So how would you advise people to do this?
So I think something, in the big picture to know is that LinkedIn predicts that by 2030, 65% of the skills of your job are going to change. So think about that. That's really almost a new job. So how the skills that you're using today, Victor, you're going to need to replace those. So you're going to need to learn new skills in the next 6 years. So I think it's really trying to be proactive and intentional, and how you need to prepare yourself for the future, which is, tomorrow. Okay. And, understanding, how is your industry changing? What are the types of skills that you're going to need? LinkedIn has a great, huge number of courses that you can take on AI and using AI in project management, whatever your category is, you can find a course to help you build up those skills. So I would really, first I would certainly advise people to take the adaptability assessment, but then, think about your goals, and then really, try to search out what are the skills I'm going to need going forward in order to have a healthy and productive career. And then, work on, finding classes, work on your habits, and really, set out a plan for yourself, because, companies are really starting to integrate AI strategies and demanding these new skill sets. So you need to really take control of your career and be a part of that future of the company, or of a company of your choosing.
Okay, then two questions come up for me. You're talking about the adaptability assessment. How does one do that? How if I wanted to take that for myself, how would I do it?
Sure. Well, you can contact me through LinkedIn, and I can set you up and get you going on an assessment. And what I also normally do with people is to have them, think about their goals first, and also to think about, the changes that they are already seeing at work. So maybe they have a new boss, maybe they have a new job, maybe there's just been layoffs, maybe they're, have a new system that they have to learn. So what is going on in your work environment? What changes are you already navigating? And, once we talk, there's often more that, we need to add in. So there's a lot of change going on. And I think people also, once they start talking about the change, it's almost, that's the first step in it getting easier to navigate, just to name it and to really, clarify the changes going on in your life.
Certainly, I guess the old adage, if you don't know that there's a problem, you certainly can't fix it.
Yep.
And so this is what you do. You help people and organizations. They do an assessment, and then based on that assessment, you help fill in the gaps of what they need to do to be on their way towards their goals. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. So I help leaders and teams and individuals to better navigate change. And, again, it's all tied to the goals, whether it's the company goal of wanting to create a culture of innovation, or it's the individual who's looking to get a promotion. So we help them to build up their adaptability skills. So these are really, core skills. And, it's, you always got to start with that core and make that core strong in order to be successful.
Okay. And then the other question I have is the assessment. Is it generic for across industries? It's or do you have a way to focus on a particular sector?
It is a generic, in those terms, it's a generic assessment. So, but it really, the tailoring comes through, understanding, what your professional or team goals are and what changes you're going through. Not only, we look at your industry and adjacent industries as well. So what comes out of the assessment is really the deep discussion about, how do you navigate change? How do you deal with all of this uncertainty in your work, in your industry? So it's tailored in terms of the application of these dimensions to your industry or your role.
Okay. One of the glaring things is I don't think you've mentioned your company. So how do you market yourself?
My company is Adapt Success. So you can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm Ann Reilly at ADAPTSuccess.com.
Okay. And the next thing is, if I were to do this, I'm more traditional about, I'm at Metropolitan, for example. So I'm putting everything in the perspective of Metropolitan.
Sure.
I would like to start making sure that we're adapted properly to a more commercially oriented focus. For a long time, we've been trying just to fix our business processes, make sure that we're publishing on a regular basis, make sure we're publishing without errors on a regular basis, do a lot more fact checking than the magazine used to do. And now we're shifting a little bit more. No, we need to shift a lot more towards being more commercially focused. This is kind of something that I'm going through with my team. It's quite painful, actually. And so is this something that you can also do, a more traditional adaptability to change, but be more sales, since you come from a commercial background?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And again, it's really, this is all tied to company objectives or the team objectives. So that's always where I start. And, I mentioned that I was the commercial director here at Yahoo Europe, and I'm really also thinking about how do I help my former self? How do I help, this leader who was in, charge of people, wanted to really empower them, wanted to affect their business. And again, that's why I think you need to elevate and empower and energize the entire team and help them with this adaptability skill. But, in terms of how do you become more commercial, I think really that's defining the goals and then understanding, is this a mindset challenge? Is this something that you need to unlearn at Metropolitan? Is this, do you need some mental flexibility in, maybe there's some different viewpoints on commercializing the publication versus, editorial type work. So there's a lot to explore there, but also in the environment, what type of environment do you have? Is there a lot of team support? Is there, how are your processes? Are your processes adaptable? It's not just people, but you need to have your processes that are adaptable in order to, support change throughout the organization.
Excellent. All right. This has really energized me. I'm constantly trying to learn. Continuous learning, that's the concept is, not new, but how we do it and how we do it effectively, and trying to do it using tools that kind of keep up with the rapid state of change. And I love the idea of having I wouldn't call it, say generic was the wrong word, maybe agnostic approach to, applying it in different platforms, different sectors, different technologies. This is all hugely helpful. So how can we get in touch with you, Ann, if we want to adapt our companies and ourselves better?
Well, great. You can send me a message on LinkedIn, which is, I'm sure, connected to this video, or you can send me an email at ann.reilly@adaptsuccess.com.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I don't have any other questions for the moment. Anything you want to add?
I'd love to know what you're going to try to unlearn, Victor.
Me. I'm still stuck in two areas. One is I'm used to dealing with large clients and building big transactions. And, one of the challenges in my companies is that a lot of us come from the management consulting background, where we want to understand the problem for the client and do an assessment and figure out a tactical or a strategic approach, when in fact, the only way for me to make money is on the transaction. So we need to unlearn trying to solve the problem for the client and really focus on what the client ultimately needs from us. There could be other consultants to help them enact the change, or maybe they need to raise capital so they can then put these change processes into work. And there's a bad habit with some of my colleagues sometimes trying to do a consultative sale when really our client needs the transaction.
Right.
I have this sometimes a bad habit of wanting to help startups, because I deal with a lot of startups. And what they really want me to do is to really help them identify potential investors. And this is something that I need to do. And here at Metropolitan, because I was used to working with much larger clients, much bigger deals, much bigger transactions, it's a very different mental shift.
Sure.
I need to adapt to selling smaller, much less expensive products. And I'm not as effective as I need to be. Maybe what I need to do is find somebody who does it better and replace them, replace me with them, I should say. So there's also a number of things that we could go to. I have all kinds of ideas that we need to implement, but we're always limited to 24 hours a day.
Sure.
And you've got to pick right. And I'm lucky that I have Tara, my editor, my boss, my partner.
She's awesome.
She's my study. She always knows how to grow in the right direction without making mistakes. She grows, slowly in the right direction. Right. I'm all over the place. So anyhow, that's what I'm going to do. And
great.
I look forward to seeing you at some of these adaptability conferences. And maybe I hope you're going to be a speaker at one, I think, in October.
Yes, I hope so. Hope to see you there.
Excellent.
And before then.
Thank you so much, Ann Reilly. I look forward to seeing you. And we should do more of these. It's been a while. We've been talking about doing it.
I know. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity.
Okay.
Have a great rest of your day.
I will do that. Thank you so much. And stay with me after we terminate here. All right.
Will do.
So, bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.